Cool. I'm actually a business manager here. He's actually here for living ironically in a place that's actually really hard to open. I wasn't going to PhD.
Is that you?
Yeah. Okay, everybody, let's get started here. This is our second transportation seminar of the winter quarter. My name is John Glebe. I'm a faculty member in the School of Urban Studies and Planning. I, along with my colleagues Jennifer Dill, Miguel Figliozzi, and Chris Monsier, put on this seminar each week. Today, actually, I think one of the things we might do is go around the room and do very brief introductions. Okay. And to give you some practice in using the microphones on your desk, we'll do that. We'll have some time at the end of today's talk to answer questions, for you to ask questions, and for our speaker, Hongwei, to answer them. I'm going to pass around this sign-in sheet for those students who are registered for the seminar credit. I'm going to start that around right now. And while that's going around very quickly, could we just go around the room and introduce ourselves, starting over here?
We'll start. Jennifer Dill, faculty, Urban Studies and Planning.
Charlie Shapiro, student, computer science.
Lenny Anderson, manager of the Swan Island Transportation Management Association in North Portland.
Chris Monsier, faculty in Civil Environmental Engineering.
Hal Hagedorn, research program manager for OTREC.
Connor Lamb, civil engineering student.
Carlo Lozano, a civil engineering student.
Larry Gubchak, civil engineering student.
Sarah Widener with Parsons Brinkerhoff. Walker, student.
Bob Kellett, graduate student in MERT program.
April Cutter, Masters of Urban and Regional Planning student.
Levi Roberts, also Masters of Urban Regional Planning student.
Chris Smith, I'm a transportation activist and a member of the Portland Planning Commission.
Scott Bruce, I'm a management leadership major.
Kyle Johnson, I'm an intern at the Portland Bureau of Transportation.
Owen Walls, I'm a civilian.
William Farley, civil engineering student.
Hadi Yamin, civil engineer.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Today our speaker is Hongwei Dong. He is a PhD candidate in the School of Urban Studies and Planning, and he's going to talk about some research that he did several months ago, actually, on linking oil prices, gas prices, economy, transport, and land use. And I guess with that, Hongwei, I will let you begin.
So again, this presentation is based on a literature review I finished in summer 2008 when I did internship at a PB. The purpose of this literature review was to provide context for the policy sensitivity test for the Oregon statewide integrated land use modeling, which is called SWIM now. It's a statewide integrated model. And the co-author also includes the John Douglas Hunt from University of Calgary and Professor Gliebe, just sitting down there. Here's the framework of my literature review. And at the top, you can see is the oil and fuel price. And the change of oil and fuel price can change a lot of aspects in the economic and daily life. In both short and long run, you can say the oil price change will influence the economy. And besides the economy, when the price of the oil or fuel price changes our daily life, like the use of heating system, air condition. And thirdly, the oil price and the fuel price changes will influence the travel cost, which is the focus of this literature review and this presentation. When the travel cost changes, the travelers will respond to it by change their travel behaviors, even their land use activities. So from left, you can see when the travel costs change, the passenger travelers will change their trip distance in terms of VMT or VKT. And the freight operators or the freight industry also can change their 10 miles. Besides the trip distance, the passenger travelers can also change their travel modes, like from car to transit, to cycling, to walking, and the reverse from transit to car. And the freight industry can also change the transport mode, like between the truck, train, air, and water. And in the long run, people can respond to the oil and gas price change by changing the number of the car they own and the type of the car they own. Like when the gas price is very high, in the long run, people tend to own nice car. and tend to own the car that had more fuel efficiency. And finally, in the long run, people can also respond to the gas and the fuel price by change their locations. Like when the gas price is very high, the travel cost is high, so people tend to live closer to their workplace, like the downtown area or the area that's closer to the employment center. And finally, all these travel behavior changes and land use activity changes will influence the fuel demand and the greenhouse emission. So this is the framework of the literature review. Because of the time limitation today, I won't be able to cover all this stuff in this presentation. Also, I select some of them here to present. So the topic is covered by today's presentation. Will cover the relationship between the oil price and microeconomy, gas price and car travel, gas price and public transit travel, gas price and car ownership and car efficiency, and finally gas price and land use. Before I go into the each part of the I just mentioned, I will define several terms that I'm going to use frequently in the presentation. So the first one is the demand elasticity. What's demand elasticity? So in economics, the demand elasticity is defined as the percentage change in the demand over the percentage change in the price. So here the price is gas price, and the demand can be the travel demand. It's also another term related to the demand elasticity is the cross elasticity. The cross elasticity is defined as the percentage change, the demand change in one commodity over the price of another commodity. So here is the price change in the gas price for car, and the change of the demand can be the transit, walk, and cycling. So it's called cross elasticity. Also, the term I'm going to use, like the short term, the long term. The short one always means within 1 year, and the long term refers to 3 or 5 years or more. Okay, the first part, oil price and economy. The change of the oil price can influence economy from both the demand and the supply sides. So at the demand side, higher oil price means consumers need to pay more for their energy expenditure, and so they have to strain their consumptions on other commodities. At the supply side, the higher oil price pushes up inflation and raises the cost of production, forcing producers to reduce production. So this is the demand and supply. Historically, all the oil price shocks have been followed by recessions. Many examples. The early one can be the 1973, and the one followed by it is the later 1970s and the early 1980s, and the early 1990s, and the recent one is the 2008. And the economic recession we are experiencing right now followed the oil price spike in 2008 summer. And among the economists, it is widely recognized that higher oil price has negative effects on the economic growth. But there is still a lot of disagreement among the economists in terms of the magnitude and the timing of the effects caused by the oil price change. So first, the impacts. Some research report that the impacts of the higher oil price are reflected on the economy significantly and immediately, while other research find that it takes 5 quarters and the impacts are not so pivotal, so contradict to each other. Here is a research done by Hamilton in 1983. It's a long time, many years ago. His research reported that impacts of the oil price on the GNP growth. GNP means gross national production. On the GNP growth had a much smaller effect after 1973. So here you can compare these two numbers. Hamilton divided the time span into 2 periods. One is before 1973 and the period after it. And as you can see here, the impacts of the oil price on the GNP growth is negative. But before 1973, in the first quarter is 0.61, but after 1973 is only 0.23. That means the American economy structure has been changed a lot since 1973, the oil crash. So the economy is not that sensitive to the oil price change anymore after the oil crash in 1973. Another important finding is that the price declines has a much smaller effects on economic growth than the price increases. In other words, it's saying that when the oil price increases, the economy suffers a lot. But when the oil price decreases, the economy does not benefit a lot from the decrease of the energy cost. So from this table, you can see the first line and the second line of the table. The first line displays the impacts of the oil price increase, and the second line displays the impacts of the oil price decrease. And in the first quarter, after the oil price increase, both effects are negative, and the positive impacts from the oil price decrease appears from the second quarter, and you can see the magnitude of this line is much smaller than the magnitude of the numbers on this line. Means when the oil price decreases, the economy does not benefit a lot. And the second part, I would discuss the gas price and the car travel. When the gas price changes, people can respond to it by changing their travel behaviors in many ways. The first, they can change the number of trips they make per day. They can also change the distance of the trips. Like previously, they went too far away to shop, but now they just go to a shop that's very close to his home. And they can also change their mode when the gas price is high. We expect people use transit more, use walking and cycling more. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, people can also change their car ownership in the long run and the fuel efficiency of the car. A basic finding from the literature review done by other researchers is that with 10% fuel price increase, the VMT will decrease by 1 to 2% in the short run, and 2.5 to 3% in the long term. These two numbers are the average number calculated from the papers published in the past 30 years, and it covers both European countries and North American countries. So this is just average number for many countries for many years. this slide shows the impacts of the average fuel price elasticity of car travel at different time periods. So the time span was divided into 3 periods: before 1974, the oil crash again, and between 1974 and 1981, and post 1981. So from here, we can see the elasticities, the magnitude of the elasticities has been decreasing over time. So it means that people are less and less sensitive to gas price in terms of their car travel. And this table shows the gas price elasticities of car travel for different trip purposes. The trip purposes included in this research, including the commuting, the home-based business, non-home-based business, education, and other. And the car travel are measured in 2 ways. One is by number of trips. Another one is by the car kilometers traveled. So it's basically VMT. So here you can see the home-based business is very insensitive to gas price change. But education purpose travel is very sensitive in the short run and long run in terms of number of trips. And here you can see by car kilometers in the short run, the home-based business trips and the non-home-based business trips are still very insensitive to the gas price change. And it's the other purpose are very sensitive. And in the long run, the home-based business is still very insensitive to the gas price change, and it is the education.
Hongwei, do you want to just, to be clear, or define what home-based business is? Because some people might think it's people who have a business, that they're running a business out of their home, and I don't think that's what you mean. So you probably want to define it.
I think the home-based and the non-home-based business trips means where the trip starts. If the trip starts from home, it's home-based. If the trip starts from your workplace, it's non-home-based business. I hope I'm correct, John. You have some comments on this terms definition?
Well, I haven't seen the table that you're quoting. I mean, I haven't seen the study that you're quoting here.
Oh, okay.
So if it's home-based work trips,
That's commuting.
then that would be commuting. Home-based business, that may be shopping or some other maintenance activity. And it's non-home-based, then it may also be some sort of personal business, household business, or shopping.
Okay.
So that's probably what it is.
So it's like people's errands, personal business trips, or running errands, going shopping, etc. Not
employment per se.
not employment per se, exactly.
If I may say so, that if that's the case, then maybe a better terminology would be home business origination trips, or home-based trips and non-home-based trips.
Excuse me?
Yeah,
The word business is the problem.
yeah.
It's origination.
Yeah, because you can see the purposes listed here include commuting. So the home-based business should not be commuting.
It's typical terminology that's used by travel demand modelers, home-based, non-home-based business. But I just wanted to clarify for this audience what it means.
So another example is research done by Congress Budget Office in 2008. They selected a few sites in California and using data between 2003 and 2006. The purpose of this research is to examine the impacts of the gas price on the traffic volume on highway in different times. So it's weekdays and weekends. And based on availability of the transit that parallel to the highway. So there are two kinds of highways in this research. One is just the highway there. Another one is the highway paralleled with real transit. So people have options. So from this table, you can say on weekends, it's always not significant. So that means on weekends, people are it's the traffic volume on highway is not sensitive to gas price change. Either the real option is available there or not available. But on weekdays, when the parallel real is available, the traffic volume on highway is sensitive to gas price change. But when no real option is there, it's still not sensitive. So people still have to drive a lot. Here, this table shows the car travelers' response to fuel price based on the time of the day, its urban peak, and their location. So here, people in urban area and in rural area, and for the people in urban area, it's also differentiated by the time off peak and peak. And from this table, you can say at the urban peak traffic is very insensitive to the gas price change. And this is within 2 years, so we can say it's short run. And the urban off peak is very sensitive to the gas price change, and the rural travelers are just in between. And after 2 years, in the long run, the urban off-peak is still the most sensitive to the gas price change, and the urban peak traffic is in between, and the rural trips are still very insensitive to gas price. I think the reason is that in the rural area, people don't have the mode options. Car travel is the only option for most people there. So even in the long run, they are not able to change their travel behavior significantly. The third part is the gas price and the public transit. This research is done by Hay and Michael Mayo in 2006. It shows the gas price cross elasticity are different among U.S. cities and malls. So here you can see there are 4 cities there: Dallas City, DC, LA, and San Francisco. They tend to have different levels of transit service. I think that's the reason why they choose these 4 cities to represent different level of urban transit service. And each city has a different mode of transit, include the motor bus, light rail, heavy rail, commuter rail. And here you can see Los Angeles is always insensitive to the less sensitive to the gas price compared to the other 3 cities. And on average, you can say light rail is very insensitive to the gas price change. And after this, we have a contradictory report from another research. So here is another research done by Carey and Fong in 2007, and still have 5 different transit modes for heavy rail, light rail, commuter rail, and bus, and 4 different time periods. And here you can see, compared to other transit modes, light rail is very sensitive to the gas price. So this is just contradict to the report here. Light rail is very insensitive to the gas price change. And I don't know why they give totally different results from different studies.
the experience in this region, at least recently, has been that when fuel prices increase, the transit agency is also raising fares to compensate. So the price of a transit trip is going up at the same time that gas prices are going up. Is that contemplated in any of these studies?
Yeah, I do just have a paper following this slide. I just got this paper from this year's TRB. People have a paper about this. So before that, let's say this. People's response to gas price in terms of transit travel behavior are different between short-term and long-term in EU. This research was done in European countries. And let's just focus on the total part because the number on different trip purposes are not so complete. So here you can see the transit travel is measured in two ways. Again, number of trips and VMT. And in the short run, we can say people change the transit trips a lot. You compare this number to this number. One is number of trips, one is VMT. So that means, okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. The last two slides, one of them focused in on LA, and then the previous slide, isn't this on the overall light rail across the country? And then
yes, this one is just say in US. Another one focused on 4 cities.
On 4 cities, yeah.
Yeah.
But the .07 actually only comes from 2 cities, one of which has terrible transit.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to point out is LA is not really a transit-friendly area even today. Sorry, I was going to say that today LA is not even a very transit-friendly area, so if you have a small effect from people changing from their car to transit, then that would make sense for LA, but across the country, you got, roughly 38% changing, so in other cities where transit is more accessible, I can see a larger change.
Okay, thanks. So let's see this table. We can see in the short run, people tend to change the number of trips they make by transit. But in the long run, you can see, compare this number to this number, you can see in the long run, people are able to change the total miles they travel by transit, as well as the number of trips. So these two numbers are close to each other than this two numbers. So in the long run, people can change both the number of trips and the vehicle miles they travel. And this paper is just from the TRB conference this year. And this research is done by WIS in Swiss. So their conclusion is that if the fuel price should again increase dramatically as it did in 2008, certain initiatives in both short-term mode choice and long-term mobility tool ownership and mileage distribution is present. So here they mean by mobility tool ownership, they mean the ownership of the car and the ownership of the transit pass. So they view the transit pass as a mobility tool. So the conclusion from this finding is that the public transit companies don't have a lot of margin to increase their fare because people tend to be more sensitive to the fare increase than the fuel price increase.
The study that you're looking at right here, is that, you said respondents, so is this based on like a state of preference survey, or is this actually based on actual trips?
You mean this Swiss one? If I remember correctly, they did both reviewed preference and stated preference. So the reviewed preference was based on the data in 2008, and again, they asked questions if the fuel price is increased again, like it did in 2008. What would you do in terms of transit travel? And the first part is the gas price and car ownership and efficiency. So here, the first paper I want to introduce is the one done by Romney in 1998. And the basic conclusion is that in the short run, motoring cost elasticity is negative 0.3. That means if the fuel price increased by 10%, then in short run, the car ownership will decrease by 3%, and in the long run it will be 2.2%. So here you can see it's motoring cost. So it includes the gas price, but it also includes other things besides the gas price. So this is based on the data from 1953 to 1994 in Britain, and the magnitude of the elasticity is surprisingly high. So how can people change their car ownership by 0.3% or 3% when the fuel price change by only 10%? So here is another finding by Johnson.
Sorry, Hongwei, what do you mean by the change in car ownership? The amount of
the amount of cars owned by the households.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. And here, the research by Johnson in 1997 shows that even in the long run, the fuel price elasticity in terms of car ownership is only negative 0.1. So you compare this number to this number. This is the long run one, and this is the long run, 22 times. So different research tend to report quite different results on this issue. So I don't know which one to believe, but I think this one tend to make more sense.
Well, I was going to say, isn't this more directly related towards Britain there, it seems like, too, because you look at how Britain's growth has been and how people are trying to make a move out of their cars. It seems like the United States is following Europe in trying to change their mode of transportation so that they may be a little bit ahead of our thinking as far as cars and what the uses of them and how they could use other transportation to fill in that.
Obviously, the difference between these two papers' results lies in many reasons, like they use different data. The geographic area is different. The first one is Britain, and the second one is OECD countries, and the time is different. But so you can't compare these two directly. It makes no sense to just make a direct comparison. But they're still that different, and that big difference difficult to explain 22 times. And here, people with different income levels tend to have different sensitivity to cost, and this is seems obvious. And here from this table, you can see the low-income people are very sensitive, and high-income people are not so sensitive compared to low and middle income in terms of their car ownership. This is consistent with our expectation. And Goodwin did a summarization of the papers that have been done in terms of people's response to fuel price by changing their number of cars. In the short run, if the gas price increased by 10%, this is about the fuel efficiency, sorry. The fuel efficiency. So in the short run, if the gas price increased by 10%, the fuel efficiency of the car raises about 1.5%. And in the long run, if the gas price increased by 10, the fuel efficiency of the car can raise by 4%. One issue we have to pay attention to when we discuss the relationship between fuel price and the car efficiency is that the rebound effects. So the rebound effects mean that when the efficiency of the car is increased, the travel cost is decreased, and then people tend to travel more because the cost is lower now. The car is more efficient. So this is the rebound effects. And Small did a research on this. They found the short run rebound effects is 4.5%. What does this mean? It means if fuel price of the car is increased by 100%, the fuel consumption will be reduced by 96%. So the 4.5% is due to the rebound effects. People travel more. And in the long run, that rebound effect is 22%. So if the fuel efficiency of the car is increased by 100%, in the long run, the fuel consumption will only be reduced by 78%. That 28% goes for the rebound effect. People travel more again because it's cheaper to drive. So the last part is the gas price and land use. I did not find many papers discussing the relationship between fuel price and land use directly in a quantitative way. A lot of quantitative analysis discussing the relationship between these two. And I think there are many reasons. The first one is land use change occur more slowly than the travel behavior, like when the gas price change or increase, you can reduce your trips immediately, but you can't change where you live and where you work immediately. So it takes much longer time for you to change your locations. So this is one reason. Another one is the cost of transportation have declined much, especially in this country. In the past like 20 or 30 years, the fuel price did not change a lot if you consider the inflation factor there. So it's still very cheap to drive. And the change in the transportation system and the cost in current days are trivial, and their impacts tend to be marginal. And the last reason I think is that the relationship between the gas price and the land use is so complicated. Sometimes it's indirect. So people still like a right tool to analyze this so complicated problem. And I think this provides some opportunity for the land use modeling. When you have a land use modeling, you can consider all these things in the model, and you can control all other variables and analyze the impacts of the fuel price itself. So I think that's one reason why we need an integrated transportation and land use model. And one paper I found is by Hunt, which is the co-author of this paper too, and he conducted a stated preference in Calgary in 1994, and they reported that the travel time to work was approximately about $18 per hour, twice as important as travel time to shop. They report this number by Canadian dollar, and I transferred it into US dollar based on the exchange rate at that time in 1994. And this number is actually, I think, is pretty high. And being within walking distance of a light rail transit station is worth about $160 per month. So that means people are willing to pay $160 per month for being close to the light rail in the Calgary area. And this number, I think, is also very high, higher than my expectation, $160. You can't save that much just by using transit instead of car. And another research is by Corright. I think this research in the local area, in the Portland area. His study on major U.S. metropolitan areas in 2008, and his conclusion is that the higher price of gas since 2004 has most affected suburban housing values because of high gas price. The logic is this: it's more expensive to travel from the suburban areas to your workplace. So people are less likely to buy the house in the remote area. So the housing value decrease in the market. I think that's the logic. And while distant suburbs have seen largest declines, the housing value in close-in neighborhoods have held up better. So that means the houses in better location, closer to downtown area, tend to decrease less, even in the economic recession. And the gas price, and he concludes that the gas price spike popped the housing bubble. And conclusions, again, cautions need to be used while explaining these results, because different paper research use different data set, methodology, time points, geographic areas. So sometimes it does not make a lot of sense to compare the results from one paper to the result from another paper. So we should be very cautious when we do that. And more empirical studies need to be done to understand the impacts of transportation costs on land use. So we have this theory since the Tunon agricultural land use theory in 1840s. I think that when the theory was developed, and we still need more quantitative work on this issue. And I think that's the presentation here. And the presentation based on the literature review written by me and Professor Han and Professor Gliebe, and for this work for the PB. Also thanks Tara and Rick at PB and Brian Gregg at ODOT for their valuable comments. And questions?
Okay, we have time for some questions. I will, if you don't have a microphone on your desk, I will come around with the handheld mic.
Yep.
Do you know of any research that's been done to break out behavior based on job type? Like somebody who works in an office might be more inclined to get on Macs with their briefcase, and somebody who's a contractor, a plumber, for example, probably isn't going to get on Macs with a water heater to come and replace your water heater. Do you know of anything broken out like that?
I did not see any paper discussing this topic.
On the slide where you had like the 4 cities, why is there so much variability in gas price cross elasticity between bus and rail modes in the 4 cities listed? It seemed like there was a lot of variability between all 4 of the modes.
Okay. I guess one reason should be the type of the passengers who are taking different kinds of modes, like the commuting rail. People tend to stick to it because even when the gas price is high, you still need to use it. Like the bus, a lot of people use the bus for a recreational or a shopping purpose, and I think the bus tend to be, I think just because the different types of passengers can explain the difference between those transit modes.
You said that gas price elasticity has been decreasing in history. Can you maybe explain a little why you might think that?
Right now, I don't think I have an answer. One reason I can think about is the gas price since 1973 in this country did not change a lot. But the people's income increased time by time, so that means the travel cost in the total budget, the proportion of the travel cost in their budget is becoming smaller and smaller. That's the thing I can think about right now, but I'm not 100% sure.
Just the reason I might have thought it might have been that way is maybe over time there haven't been very good alternative modes as there were in the past.
So. Right, I think that, that's possible.
I found it interesting that the increase in gas price hurts the economy much more than a decrease. Can you discuss any of the attached, why that is? Could it be because other things like transit prices rise and don't go back down, or why is it that there's such a drastic effect by the increase, but really not an effect at all by the decrease?
Actually, when discussing the impacts of the increase of gas between the difference between the gas price increase and gas price decrease is, I was discussing it in terms of economy growth. So it's not travel.
No, yeah, that's what I mean, impact on the economy.
Well, sorry, I don't have answer for that.
I was just struck by the 10% factor, and just being out on the street. If fuel goes from $2 a gallon to $2.20, I don't think people particularly notice. And so, I'd kind of throw back to you. With 2008, we had an opportunity to analyze some of these same factors with an order of magnitude change, more like 50%. Fuel going from $2.50 to $4, and I'll tell you, people pay attention when you have. In other words, you do an experiment, you change a variable, you only change it 10%. It's tough to see the real impacts. And we've had the misfortune or good fortune, depending on which side you're on, in 2008 to see a pretty severe spike. And so we have kind of an opportunity to study and get some better numbers, I guess. Is what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, I think that's why this paper is. The purpose of this paper is to provide context for a policy sensitivity test for the Oregon statewide integrated model and the sensitivity test. The purpose of that sensitivity test was to examine the impacts of the 2008 gas price increase on the land use and transportation. Yeah, I think you are right. Yeah.
You had some recent studies on there. Was there anything like on the program for Clash for Clunkers on how it affected like a rebound effect? Did you see any research on that?
I noted one paper in this TRB conference discussing the impacts of the Clash for Clunker on the greenhouse emission. People did an estimation for this program in terms of its impacts on the greenhouse emission. If you are interested, you can look for that paper from this TRB conference records. Yeah.
I was going to ask, so your focus of area was on Oregon and Washington State, or were you in the Portland metro area looking?
What you mean the integrated land use model, or my
For your research, where you were, I noticed that you had a lot of other papers that you reviewed, but for your research, what areas were you focused in on?
What do you mean by my research?
Oh, it's just the literature review.
Yeah, it is just a literature review.
Well, actually, this gentleman had his hand up earlier.
Okay.
My question is, you did speak about short-term and long-term, but I'm wondering if we really have had in this country a long-term experience for the high gas prices. It cannot be reflected in your study because we have not had gas prices as $5-6 a gallon for 3-4 years in the run, because as the gas price has gone up a little bit, it has immediately come down. So people have not had the opportunity to make a long-run decision.
Yeah, I agree. I think a good example should be in the European countries, not in this country. Yeah, that's why a lot of research was done by the researchers from European countries. They have much higher gas price than here. Jennifer?
So we have a question from someone watching on the web. And did you find any literature that on the land use issues specifically related to freight? In other words, did freight businesses shift or respond to gas price?
I tried to look for that kind of paper discussing like how the freight companies or industries change their locations based on the fuel price, but I did not find any paper discussing this issue in a quantitative way. I think, the relationship between company locations, freight transportation companies, and transportation. Yeah, it's very important. Oh.
I think I'd like to reiterate that it does seem like Europe would be a much better investigation ground than the U.S., and that slide with the various cities and their wildly different responses is the case in point. America does not have good transit alternatives, and so trying to do this study in America is very difficult. Europe does, and that's where I would think future studies should be focused.
I partly agree, but in here you also have advantage, like the transit mode share maybe just 3 or 4%, but when it's increased to 8%, it's a lot compared to 5%, but the amount of people is not that much. So you always tend to find a rapid increase if you just compare the mode share in this year to the mode share in 10 years or 20 years ago. Maybe one is only 1 or 2%, and this year is 4 or 5%, is double.
If our goal is reducing all car trips, and considering that price sensitivity has decreased over since 1974, do you think that changing fuel prices is an effective way to decrease car transportation, or are there other more effective ways?
Well, I think the question is how do you define efficient way? So there are many ways to do it: gas price and pricing on road, provide more transit options, increase the parking fees. All these options. I did not see any research paper discussing or say compare different policy tools to influence people's travel behavior. So I can answer if this policy tool is more efficient or less efficient than other possible tools now. Josh?
I guess sort of in relation to the question about land use and freight, did you run across anything with the elasticities of fuel prices and freight? I'm guessing that the increase in truck as a freight mode, there probably hasn't been too strong of a relationship since that's kind of the way the business has been going.
Actually, compared to my literature review paper, this presentation skipped several sections. One section is the gas price and freight transportation. I skipped that one because of the time limitation here. If you are interested in, I can show you the full paper there. Yeah.
I found it interesting your findings on the macroeconomic effects of the gas price increases. I can see that being particularly the case in the United States, where we're so perhaps more spread out than other countries and require more transportation. I'm wondering if there's been a study done on the macroeconomic effects when there are fuel tax increases, like in European countries where they increase a fuel tax by a significant portion, whether that would have the same effect on the macroeconomics than if it's just rising fuel prices because of oil supply demand.
Okay, so you want to compare the fuel price and the fuel tax increase?
Right. I mean, fuel prices can go up for various reasons. One can be, government tax, or other can be, supply issues, demand issues, etc. And so I'm wondering if they would have different impacts on the economy depending on what the reasoning would be.
Yeah, I did not review papers discussing this topic, but there might be some papers on this, but I'm not sure. Sorry.
Thanks. You had mentioned that fare increases, transportation fare increases, were more influential on travel than fuel price increases. I was wondering why that might be, and what were the alternatives for these transit riders? Did they switch to driving? Did they just not travel?
I think one reason makes people are more sensitive to the bus fare, also due to the type of the people who are using transit. In this country, I think low-income people are more likely to use transit, so they are more sensitive to the price. I think that's one reason why people are more sensitive to the bus fare than the gas price.
We have time for one more.
One more, okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but it seemed like that last study, the Courtright study, suggests there was a decline in suburban housing values based on distance from the central business district. And I'm wondering if there seems to be a tendency in a lot of metro areas for employers to not locate any longer in the central business district, maybe even in the suburbs. So I'm wondering, is there maybe another variable that's affecting those housing prices?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there are many factors are influencing the housing price, also the housing value. I read Corrett's paper. He did not get the conclusion from a very complicated modeling way. He just compared 30 or more U.S. metropolitan areas to compare how the housing price has been changed since the oil price spikes, and he just found the housing price in different areas, like the downtown area, maybe decreased by only 1%, but the far suburban areas decreased by 10%. And I think he related to this phenomena to the gas price in my view, a little bit actual way, because he did not use a complicated model to make the connection. He just makes conclusions. Yeah, as many factors, he did not control other factors. That's yeah.
Okay, well, it looks like we're done. Let's give a round of applause for Hongwei. And I will put in a plug for next week's seminar. Next week, our speaker is Mel Rader, co-director of Upstream Public Health, and the topic will be the health benefits of reducing greenhouse gas emissions in our transportation system. So if you're interested in that, same place, same time next Friday. That's it.